Hello, dear friends. It's crazy how many important news are coming out. So many that I have had to postpone many of them so as to not to make the video too long. This also slows me down. Opinion piece. From red to scarlet. October goes from red to scarlet. People are hoarding food. Bankruptcy would soon become official. Russia cuts relations with Nato. We are in a period of turbulence. Events are accelerating. The crisis could reach its peak. Stock market collapse is looming. There are shortages of food, goods and energy. The price of gold is being artificially lowered. Energy crisis hits global recovery. Fed chief sells his shares ahead of bankruptcy. Poland accuses European Union of centralism and usurping powers. La Palma Island records largest earthquake since eruption. Let's start. The October is turning from red to scarlet because everything is getting complicated. I would like to give better news, but problems arise everywhere. We should not be overwhelmed by problems, but be aware of them to solve them to the best of our ability, or at least protect ourselves from them. You are going to see red in all categories: industrial, stock markets, military, also at the international level with red China and red Russia. Red October is not just in one area, it's in every area. Red China, economy, inflation is getting very serious. Prices going up, big inventory backlogs that will affect prices. Cost of money will go up, dollar inflation. Chinese throwing money at everything. Can't generate enough electricity for their factories because they don't have enough coal because the ships won't come to the docks. Cash flow back to China is hurting things. Red October affects a number of things. Crops in South America, crop prices down the road. There is a natural gas crisis in Europe. The Fed chief has been caught dumping his shares just before the market fell. Chairman Jerome Powell sold as much as $5 million worth of shares just before the stock market suffers a significant drop. Acceleration. Attention. We are accelerating. Time and events have accelerated so much that it's no longer clear where are we now. The news is bombarding us like an egg-sized hailstorm. Scarcity seems to be the main course of the menu these days, but there are so many wonderful appetizers and other dishes to generate the food needed to succeed that it takes a lot of faith, intention and determination. Together we can build a future that provides abundance, financial security and thriving community outside of the system they are trying to create for us. The first step begins with accepting that things are changing, as perception is the key to overcoming it. According to Benjamin Fulford, the West is now facing a period of extreme turbulence as the dark side struggles to survive before bankruptcy becomes official in early December, in his opinion. Say MI6 and Asian secret society sources. Matthew 24:21, in quotes, "For them shall be a great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be." The economy has long been propped up with massive amounts of printed money that inflation is now taking off. The propped-up financial system is plagued by rising inflation, supply chain disruptions, and massive labor shortages, which could lead to a giant system collapse and soon. Daniel 10:2-3, in quotes, "At that time I, Daniel, moaned for 3 weeks. I ate no choice food, no meat or wine touched my lips, and I used no lotion until the 3 weeks were over." World in crisis. People are hoarding food. In Denver, public school children are facing milk shortages. In Chicago, a local market is running out of canned goods and boxed items. But there is plenty of food. There isn't always enough processing and transportation capacity to meet the growing demand as the economy accelerates. Energy crisis hits global recovery as winter approaches. Power shortages are shutting down streetlights and closing factories in China. Brazil's poor are choosing between paying for food or electricity. German corn and wheat farmers can't find fertilizer made with natural gas, and fears are growing that Europe will have to ration electricity if it's a cold winter. Shortages of food, goods and energy. Prices soar for heating oil, eggs, meat, fish, butter and baby food. This winter would be hard not only for everyone. A war between Israel and Iran and between China and Taiwan would also be possible. The situation in China is getting worse. 2/3 of the population have restricted access to energy due to shortages, which affect deliveries to Western countries. The largest US ports are facing a record backlog of cargo ships, which in total are carrying nearly 1 million containers stuck at sea. There are nearly 500,000 containers at the port of Los Angeles alone. 20-foot containers carrying 12 million metric tons of cargo are waiting to dock at the port and unload a massive volume of goods. At this time, 19 megaships are waiting to dock at the port, the largest of which is carrying approximately 20,000 20-foot cargo containers, along with the port of Long Beach, where there are currently 90 container ships off the California coast, 63 of which are still waiting offshore, which is significantly higher than the 2019 average. Cargo ships full of goods were still crowding the seas on both coasts, with frustrated mariners reporting, in quotes, "They are still not allowing ships to dock to drive up prices of consumer goods and create the illusion of a crisis." Given the unprecedented congestion along the coast, some shippers decided to move their vessels to other ports. However, a similar chaotic situation has developed there. At least 24 vessels are still waiting to leave the port of Savannah, which is an all-time record, and 9 large ships left New York Harbor. The situation is getting worse by the hour. Nearly 1 million containers are now stuck outside US ports, waiting for a place to dock and unpack. Italy. Italy is blocked from north to south. The port of Trieste launched an attack on the Green Pass. The port of Ancona responded and was joined by Ligurian ports, the major ports of Genoa, and others such as Gioia Tauro and Civitavecchia at the gates of Rome. The blockade of the ports causes logistic failures, and trucks can neither enter nor leave, nor load nor unload. In Italy, a workers' protest at the port of Trieste threatens to provoke a major oil crisis in Europe. 75% of the cargo traffic in the port of Trieste is oil. There is a pipeline connection to the German lands in addition to the rail connection. Trieste is in a strategically important location, and it's no coincidence that it has been disputed for many years. The dock workers are not the only ones on the warpath. Powerful protests are also taking place in Turin, near the factories. Truck drivers, employees, citizens, and many students joined demonstrations everywhere: in Florence, in Turin, in Milan, in front of the courthouse, the university, and the headquarters of the state TV channel Rai. In more than 30 medium and small towns, and in the capital Rome, at the Circus Maximus, a chariot racing building of ancient Rome, which was erected in the valley between the Aventine and Palatine mountains, Aventine and Palatine in Latin, until they moved the railroads and pipelines overnight. This problem will put half of Europe in a crisis situation, and the dockers know it perfectly well. The willingness of the Italian involved in the supply chain and logistics to maintain their opposition to the Green Pass, and it is provoking to be a successful strategy. If this continues, the government will be forced to give in to avoid a continental oil crisis. Spain. La Palma records 4.8 earthquake, the largest since the eruption. The Canary island of La Palma recorded a 4.8 magnitude earthquake tonight, the largest since the volcanic crisis that has engulfed the island began weeks ago. The rescue of dogs trapped in the lava of the volcano is authorized. The authorities have granted this Tuesday the permission to the company Aerocámaras to proceed with the rescue of the 4 dogs that remain trapped in the lava since the eruption of the Cumbre Vieja volcano. The arrival of migrants in Almería, Cádiz, Alicante, and Balearic Islands continues. The arrival of migrants through the Mediterranean route, through which hundreds of people have landed on the coasts of Andalusia, Balearic Islands, or the Valencian community, has forced to mobilize resources for their reception in the last hours. 125 migrants arrived to the Canary Islands. 125 migrants of sub-Saharan and North African origin have arrived during the last hours in 3 boats to the islands of Fuerteventura, Gran Canaria, and La Graciosa. The IBEX 35 leads the advances in Europe, but remains at the gates of their 9,000 points. The European stock exchanges have ended with moderate rises on Tuesday, with the section of the French CAC 40, which has ended flat. The IBEX 35 closed with a rise of 0.67% to 8,996.3 points. Americas in plural. Protests in the Guatemalan Congress leave 4 journalists injured and 2 detained. Protests by hundreds of retired military personnel on Tuesday in the Guatemalan Congress left 4 journalists injured and a dozen of policemen injured, in addition to 2 detainees and hundreds of officials and workers of the legislative body with nervous breakdowns. Chile commemorates anniversary of 2019 protests. Chile's capital Santiago geared up for protests on Monday to mark the second anniversary of the start of months of anti-inequality unrest that left some 30 people dead and a trail of destruction around the city. Europe. Supply chain crisis may be coming to a head. Optimism is low among UK industrial CEOs. Congested ports and shortages of labour and goods such as semiconductors have crippled some companies. Philips is feeling the pain. The 35 billion euros Dutch group that makes everything from MRI machines to electric toothbrushes. Chief Executive Frans van Houten on Monday cut its growth targets as winter approaches, citing supply chain problems. Chip shortages and shipping delays could prevent it from delivering orders worth about 200 million euros in the fourth quarter, delaying revenue into next year. European gas price rises 20%. The price of gas in Europe has surpassed $1,300 per thousand cubic meters on Monday after falling to nearly $980 in earlier trading on the London Stock Exchange. German diesel prices rise to record highs. After several weeks of uncontrolled rallies, the price of diesel fuel in Germany has risen to record highs. UK should allow more European Union immigration. The UK should temporarily allow more young people from the European Union to return to its labour markets to address the staff shortages faced by many companies. A human resources trade body said. The British are paying for their xenophobia toward foreign workers. Poland accuses European Union of centralism and usurping powers. Polish Prime Minister goes on the offensive. Mateusz Morawiecki believes the European Union is usurping powers it does not have, in quotes, and says its centralism can be very dangerous. He has made this known in a letter addressed to the 27 heads of state and government of the European Union. In it, he claims that the Commission is dangerously overstepping the limits of its powers by interfering in constitutional matters at home. Poland nearly doubles number of troops of Belarus border. Nearly 6,000 Polish soldiers are now protecting the country's border with Belarus in beefed up security measures in the face of a surge in immigration, the defense minister said Tuesday. Russia cuts diplomatic ties with Nato. Russia cut nearly all remaining ties with NATO on Monday in retaliation for the Western military bloc's expulsion of 8 of its diplomats earlier this month, in the latest sign of growing tension between the former Cold War foes. USA. Fed looks far behind. Compared to the rest of the world's central banks, the market's timetable for when the Federal Reserve will begin raising interest rates looks positively subdued. Most others, with the exception of the European Central Bank, are expected to move at a much faster pace. Fed may become more aggressive. If inflation continues to rise at its current pace in the coming months instead of slowing as expected, Fed policymakers may need to adopt a more aggressive policy response next year, Fed Governor Christopher Waller said Tuesday. Fed expects gradual tapering next month rate hike. The Federal Reserve should begin gradually tapering its bond buying program next month, although interest rate increases are likely to be still around for a while, Governor Waller said. Stock market rises. Stock indexes around the world rose Tuesday as technology stocks extended recent gains and earning reports were upbeat, while the 10-year Treasury yield rose to its highest level in more than 4 months. Wall Street closes higher. Stock indexes closed higher Tuesday, with the biggest gains in technology and healthcare sectors, as investors appear to bet on strong quarterly reports, even as some fear it's too soon to celebrate. Stocks extended a rally on Tuesday as strong corporate results helped offset concerns stemming from elevated inflation. Global stock indexes rose after gains in technology. 10-year Treasury yields rise to 5-month high, pushing the 10-year Treasury note to its highest level since around May, after the stock market rallied. Toronto high. Canada's main stock index rose to an all-time high Monday as investors snapped up high-flying technology companies and dumped more defensive stocks such as utilities and telecommunications. Markets. Brent crude closes above $85 a barrel for first time since 2018. Global benchmark Brent closed above $85 a barrel for the first time since October 2018 amid a stronger stock market and ongoing concerns about the global energy crisis. Oil futures end a multi-year highs. Oil futures rise on Tuesday, ending a new multi-year highs on reports that there could be a downside to Russia's bid to boost natural gas supplies to Europe. They hold gold. The point is that all central banks worldwide are holding gold, and that gold and silver, unlike all other commodities, are not rising in price in dollars per ounce. Why? Because the price of gold is being artificially suppressed to allow banks to buy cheap before the collapse. Poland and India step up gold tonnage orders. The Polish central bank will buy 100 tons of gold in 2022 to boost the nation's financial security. US needs more rare earths. The United States and allied nations should mine and process more rare earths to ensure an adequate global supply of the strategic minerals for military and commercial uses, a Defense Department official said Tuesday. Tight labor market triggers strikes for higher wages. Thousands of workers continue to strike demanding higher wages and better conditions, even though Hollywood makeup artists and camera operators reached an agreement over the weekend to avert a strike, and the tight labor market has only been emboldened. Cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin hits 6-month high. The price of Bitcoin rose to a 6-month high Tuesday, surpassing $63,000 as the long-awaited ProShares exchange-traded fund began trading on the New York Stock Exchange. The Bitcoin hit 64,309 on Tuesday, about 0.9% of its all-time high. Bitcoin approaching all-time high resistance. Bitcoin is rapidly approaching its final resistance area and is currently less than $2,000 below its all-time high price, while the technical readings remain bearish. The wave count indicates that it is approaching the top of its upward move. They predict that the price of Bitcoin will grow to $168,000. The price of Bitcoin could nearly triple after the first Bitcoin futures-based fund begins trading on the New York Stock Exchange, predict U.S. consultancy Fundstrat. Middle East, with 100,000 fighters, Hezbollah warned the Lebanese forces of its power. Leader Sayed Hassan Nasrallah declared on national television that the Lebanese Shiite movement has never been as powerful, in quotes, as it is now, with 100,000 trained fighters in the event of a civil war. This is what he warned the Lebanese forces in his first speech after the last Thursday attack, which killed 7 people in Beirut. According to Nasrallah, the forces were responsible for the massacre. Turkish lira at a new low. Turkish lira sank to a new record low against the dollar on Monday, with some financial analysts seeing little respite given expectation of an irrational interest rate cut later this week. Al-Qaeda threatens the only road linking Morocco to sub-Saharan Africa. The spread of jihadists in Mali threatens dozens of Moroccan truckers who transport goods up to sub-Saharan Africa every day. After Al-Qaeda attacked the only road connecting Morocco to Bamako, a 3,700 kilometer route that has now become dangerous. China. Floods in western China destroy agricultural production. Continuous rains for more than 10 days have caused the lower reaches of the Luo River. China sells $4 billion bond. China sold a dollar bond in Hong Kong for the 5th consecutive year, even as credit market strains emerge amid deepening concerns about the financial health of the country's property developers. Energy squeeze slows China's growth, leaves Europe in a bind. China's energy shortage hit growth in the world's second largest economy, threatening more pain for global supply chains, while Europe's gas squeeze looked set to continue as Russia's Gazprom showed no signs of increasing exports to the region in October. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.